Welcome to the podcast where passion and purpose collide. We are on a mission to interview women and the occasional token man about how their passion and purpose have collided to create healthy relationships and profitable businesses. I am Elizabeth Denham here with Rebecca Monet. We are the founders of the Coterie for Women and publishers of the Franchise Women magazine. How are you today, Rebecca?
Happy Wednesday.
Yes, happy.
I'm doing good. We actually had a dusting of snow last night.
Wow. I would take some of that right now since I sweated and got rained on yesterday. I don't know if you saw my photo on the Coterie. I was drenched.
You live in Alabama.
Yeah. I mean, it could be 40 one minute and 80 the next, and you're going to be wet one way or the other. I thought I was going to make it. It was supposed to rain. I knew it. I stayed close, but I didn't stay close enough. And by the time I got home, I was sopping wet. So.
Oh, no.
Oh, well.
Well, it's supposed to be sexy. That I don't know.
It was not sexy. Go look at the photo. Not sexy.
Okay. Well.
I look a mess. So what are your roses and thorns this week?
Roses and thorns. So my thorn, I don't eat chips. I've never been attracted to chips. I know you're looking at me like, what
is wrong with you? Salty, good chips. That's something wrong with that.
But I bought a bunch of chips, those little packs that you buy for kids and they're in the closet. So when the grandkids come by, and I was starving. So I grabbed the Doritos, the ones that are like a triangles.
Yeah.
Those things are sharp. It's like,
did you cut your mouth?
I'm like, yes, I'm right behind.
Oh.
My two front teeth, that space.
Yeah.
Right
mm-hmm.
I'm like, these chips are dangerous. We're giving them to our kids. I was like.
They clearly know how to put it in and bite and not slide.
I'm like, holy schmoly, they should make them round or something. So that's my thorn. I still feel like I have a Dorito chip at the roof of my mouth behind my toofies.
That's not fun. No,
it's definitely not fun. But talking about food and talking about my grandkids kind of brings up the rose in my life.
Okay.
I love to cook, and my granddaughters, who are 11 and 8, they frequently come to grandma's, and we do a slumber party, and we always cook. And Ebony, who's my 8-year-old, is really taking to cooking. I mean, we have our aprons and we put everything together, and she thinks it through, and she just really has taken to it, so much so she's now cooking for her family when she's home.
Wow, at 8, that's pretty good.
Yeah, my daughter sent me pictures today of what Ebony had cooked last night and pictures last week. So she's got the cooking bug. But what was really cute is we were setting the table and putting food out, and Ebony sits down and she says, what makes this food so delicious? And I said, what's that, honey? She said, butter and love.
Oh, she's not wrong.
And I said, that's the answer. It's always add butter.
Butter makes everything good.
Butter makes everything.
And so does love.
And love. She said, that's what makes this delicious, is butter and love.
Good for her. That's so sweet.
And that's sweet. Yeah. So there you have, I have a future chef in my family.
Always good to have.
Yeah. So maybe she'll reinvent the Doritos so it doesn't kill you when you eat them.
We could just make them round.
Make them round. It's softer, right? Where they don't poke at you. So how about you? What's your rose and your thorn?
Well, my thorn is my day was disrupted because Donald's truck broke down. I had to drive to Florida to go pick him up. He's still dealing with it right now. I hope he doesn't.
Okay, wait. Here's what I heard you say.
What?
Donald Trump broke down.
Oh.
I think what you said was Donald's truck
broke
down. Okay. Keep going.
Your brain is still in that space.
All right. Please
No.
continue. Poor
Donald's
Donald's
truck broke down on the side of the road, and so he's trying to deal with that right now. And I so every now and then he'll text me something. Joseph had to go help him. He had a trailer with scaffolding attached, so we had to make sure that was back safely, and then he's trying to work his way back. So that is quite a big thorn. We've had more cars break down lately. We have too many cars because we have too many kids. So, car insurance kills us. I mean, everything is it's just too many things. So that is annoying. However, your rose prompted my rose, which is I hate to cook. Hate it. And I think it's because there are too many people in my family. So when I grew up, we had 5 kids, so there was 7 of us. That's a lot of people to cook for as a routine.
Lot of people, yeah.
Then I cooked, as a single mom with 3 boys who ate a lot. And then now I'm a blended family with, if everybody's home, it's another 7. And I think I just hate going to the grocery store and shopping for food and then having to cook it for all of those people. I can do it. I just don't find joy in fixing things. I just want it to be over and done with. I guess I like to eat, but I don't like to eat enough that I have to have something special. I could live on popcorn and wine for dinner. That I would be happy for an eternity with popcorn and wine for dinner. So Donald knows that I hate this, and I think he's finally embracing it. He used to sort of tease like, well, come on.
Are you cooking dinner tonight?
Dinner. And so yesterday he went to the store and he bought a roast, and he found this recipe that he wanted to try. And instead of saying, here you go, fix it, because I'm home more than he is. He got it all ready in the morning, came back at 2:00. He's working right down the street this week. And so he came home and fixed it, chopped up all the stuff and fixed it. All I had to do was mix up the mashed potatoes, which I'd never had these, horseradish and a little sour cream with mashed potatoes, and they were good.
Yum.
It was one of the best meals we've had in a long time. And it was just the 2 of us. There's tons of leftover because Joseph had gone to work. So he made this really nice meal. So that was my rose. I didn't have to cook it, and it was really good.
What a deal.
You can't beat that, right? So then when he calls me when his truck breaks down, I have to, drop what I'm doing and say, of course I will come get you.
Of course you fixed roast and mashed taters.
And I had it for lunch. I had 8 minutes to eat lunch today.
So get over being mad about the truck. Be grateful for the mashed taters.
Right? I mean, what's not to love about that? That's got to be a rose. They were so good. And they were just as good the second day when I had them for lunch. So
what a deal. Yum.
There you have it.
Crazy.
So all in all, I guess we're hanging in.
It was a good week.
Yeah. To go. But we have Hump Day Happy Hour today. So if you are tuning in, join us at 5. You can find it on our Facebook page.
Looking forward to seeing everyone.
Yeah, I know.
Always so much fun.
It is. I'm excited about it. So join us now.
Well, no, at 5:00.
5:00. 5:00 Central Time. Hop on. All right. So I guess that is Roses and Thorns for this week. And we will see you next week for more exciting Roses and Thorns. Welcome back to the podcast where passion and purpose collide. Today, we are here with Dori Roberts Stewart, who is the president of Engineering for Kids. Engineering for Kids is a STEM education franchise for children. After working as a high school teacher for 11 years, Dori founded the company in 2009 to teach children ages 4 to 14 STEM. What started as an after-school program evolved into a year-round set of classes, summer camps, birthday parties, workshops, and more than 100 locations worldwide. Dori, welcome to our show.
Thank you for having me.
We are excited to have you. And I think this is such a neat topic. And your story is such a neat story for other women. I think it's very inspiring to have started in one space and end up in such a different place than you probably originally thought. So tell us a little bit about how you got to franchising from being a high school teacher.
Sure. So yeah, my background is in education. My undergrad degree is in elementary, middle, math and science education, and my master's degree is in technology education. So like you said, I started teaching high school engineering. I taught for 11 years. And during that time, I was also the advisor of an after-school club called the Technology Student Association. And it was through that club that I took my students to various competitions, statewide as well as nationally. And throughout that process, I had my own children. And, this is a volunteer gig for teachers. So I would, cart my kids along with me and take them to all these competitions. And they'd hang out in my classroom with me. And I'd come home from school and they'd ask about the progress that my high school students were making in their projects. And so one summer we had a national TSA competition, and it happened to be in Orlando, Florida over the summer. And so I thought, my kids will not forgive me if I don't take them along.
Good move.
So I decided to combine the trip and make it also, some family time. And I thought that I was going to have trouble with them all week. I thought that they were going to, be begging me to go to Disney. And, I did carve out a Disney day, but I thought it was going to be a torturous week for them. But instead, they were very excited with what my high school students were doing. And they wanted to go and watch all the competitions. And I remember my son being upset that he couldn't compete too. It was cute. So, that really prompted me to start thinking about, what is being taught in the schools. They were in elementary school. And so I was looking at their curriculum and, I saw that they're teaching math and science, but they weren't teaching the applied math and science. They weren't teaching engineering. And the only kids at their school that was getting those opportunities are the kids who were enrolled in the Gifted and Talented program. And so I one day had a flyer come home in my son's backpack that the PTA was doing a fundraiser, and they were asking parents if they had any hobbies or a business or, wanted to volunteer to teach an after-school program to raise money for the school. And so I thought, okay, I could take what I'm doing with my high school kids and because I have, my bachelor's degree is in elementary middle education, I could, change it up and make it more developmentally appropriate for the elementary age kids. And that first class was a civil engineering class, and it took off. The kids loved it. I had parents pull me aside and ask, what else I had to offer, and the principal asked me back, and word got out to other schools, surrounding this particular school. And I started, teaching programs in the after school setting. And I had a parent say, do you offer summer camps? And I thought, okay, this is something that I could do with my kids, a little side hustle. And the summer camp took off, and I ended up quitting my teaching job and added more curriculum and added more programs. And so a couple years into it, I started getting people, kind of falling upon my website. They would Google things like engineering programs for kids in Chicago, or, engineering curriculum for kids in Atlanta. And so people were emailing me from all over the world wanting to buy my curriculum, or they would say, do you have any plans to bring engineering for kids, to this location? And so I started doing the research on ways to grow my business, and really found that franchising was the best business model for engineering for kids. I feel like with this type of business, you really need, that owner operator that knows their own community best. So it was at that time I started doing the research, and took every class I could find, read books, talked to any franchise consultant or any franchisor that would talk to me to pick their brain. And I ultimately got my CFE, my Certified Franchise Executive credentials through the IFA, and found a great attorney and started doing the work to create my manuals and get all the legal documents together. And in 2011, we sold our first franchise.
I love this story for a lot of reasons, which is it was just an idea, which was, you know what, maybe we'll help the PTA raise some money and I have this skill and we'll just do this after school program. It was just to kind of to help out, right? And then others began to ask, do you do this? Do you do this? Do you do camps? It's kind of like you were led in this direction without even knowing you were going this direction, simply by listening to the feedback of folks. And then, like you said, adapting your curriculum, and in this case, also adapting your business model so it could get out to more people. It's like, I guess what I'm amazed at with this, Elizabeth and Dori, is the trust and the faith that you sort of had that this is what you were supposed to be doing. That's
Thank you.
You know, it is a remarkable thing when you think about it, because I think a lot of us have ideas or say, I have this skill and maybe I could do this or that, but very few follow through or
Right.
follow through to the point of success. You know, the saying about how many people give up right before they hit success. So what about you, do you think gave you that drive? And it is a leap of faith to quit your job and to go into business and then to franchise and then just, you know, to franchise on a bigger scale. What about you makes you unafraid to do that, I think?
That's a great question. Yeah, I think I kind of took things, you know, definitely step by step.
Mm-hmm.
You know, when I first started the business, I was still teaching. You know, I at the time had was, you know, fresh off of a divorce, and so, you know, I originally, it was something that I could do, to one, give back to the community, but also I could include my own kids with me, you know, so I was carting them along with me to, you know, these after school programs and these camps. They made the best guinea pigs to test the curriculum. But it, you know, it really gave me, you know, something to, you know, pour my heart and soul into during that time. But I also got to do it with my kids, which was very cool. And you know, they're both in college now, but they still, you know, when they were in high school, they were engineering for kids teachers, and my son actually is currently helping with curriculum.
Wow.
And so, yeah, so they're, you know, they're both going into STEM fields, and, you know, they still ask, you know, questions about, you know, who's coming to the next Discovery Day. They're still very involved in the whole process.
Mm-hmm. Well, and I think there's a special thing that happens for a lot of us. I've been through a divorce myself, and I feel like a lot of times you become more of a unit. Like, we are going to do this together and we are going to have this experience together, not only to help them through a tough time, but to just redefine, you know, what your life is going to look like. And so being able to pull them into something that you're doing like that had to be a great gift during a time that could have been, and I'm sure was, a struggle, but you had all of this positive energy coming to you at that time. I mean, what kind of impact did that have on getting you?
It was really cool. It was really cool. They had a lot of pride in it, and especially when their friends were, you know, taking engineering for kids classes, and, you know, they'd wear their engineering for kids gear to school, and they were like, "That's my mom's business." So it was really cool, you know, for them to see the business grow. I think it was a big learning experience for them as well as myself, because, you know, it's a new business model for me, and you know, they were learning, you know, through it with me, which was very cool. So.
Well, and one more thing, but before we move on to the different section of questions, but do you have boys or girls, or but one of each?
One of each.
Okay, so I think seeing a strong woman create something out of nothing, my kids, especially during that time, I think were proud to see me do things that they thought were cool. So I think that it's very cool that during a tough time of life, you also were able to do something like this that made your kids see you in action and seeing you be strong and seeing you successful. What do you think that has taught them?
Oh, goodness. I think it's taught them that they can get through hard times as well. So I think it opened their eyes to that they may not have had that experience otherwise. And so, and for me, I mean, it got me through, those tough times and gave me something to focus on, and, gave me something to, kind of pour into. And the fact that they got something out of it as well, it was just, icing on the cake.
I love
Yeah.
that.
Did you ever think you were going to be an entrepreneur, a business owner, a franchisor?
No, I did not. I did not. No, I am, first generation college student. My parents, they are very proud of me. But when I was in high school, I was very social. I was a cheerleader. I didn't make the best grades. I was a very average student. And so they would have been happy if I had just, gone straight into the workforce. But I wanted to go to college. I wanted to be a teacher. And, I remember my mom, when my parents dropped me off freshman year, we drove past a medical school, which was near the college where I went to. And I remember my mom saying, "Oh, you can just go sit on the steps and get your MRS." And she was joking, but not really joking.
Find yourself a nice doctor, right?
Exactly. Exactly. But yeah, so I very much enjoyed teaching. It wasn't that I was looking to be a business owner. And I, other than, courses I've taken through IFA, I don't have a business degree. I have a degree in education. So, it's been a learning process. And so it's really just, kind of taking everything step by step, has gotten me through it.
Well, and to be driven by a purpose, you're definitely driven by a purpose, but the expectations that your family had of you were kind of average expectations. They weren't expecting you to take over the STEM world or, or build this empire the way you have. And yet fate, let's call it fate for lack of a better word, has led you to a place where you're making a difference in a lot of children's lives, not just in those courses, but it's going to change the direction of their lives in general, possibly careers and, ways that they can create their own life. But you pointed out something that I thought was interesting, that many of these STEM programs or engineering programs were for the gifted, for those that were gifted and or had the financial resources. How are you addressing that, and how does that play into everything that you're doing?
Yeah, so it's interesting at the elementary level. Back in 2009, it was just the gifted kids who had those opportunities, and even at the high school level, where at the time I was teaching, it was interesting. I would mostly get males in my classes, and so it took a lot of work to kind of train the guidance counselors on what STEM is, what opportunities are out there for girls and boys. And it was really through my involvement with the Technology Student Association. So I had only 8 students the first year I started that club, and I had 180 the last year teaching. And that experience that the kids were having, the word got out that it was a lot of fun, that we had these really cool projects. We got to go on trips, which, kids love that. But that is really what was the turning point for me recruiting girls. And once I got them in my classroom and they started taking my classes, they would say to me, "I wish I had known about this sooner. I would have taken classes back in middle school, or I would have started earlier in high school." And so I strongly believe that if we can get kids introduced to engineering at a young age and hook them in and show them how fun it is and show them what a great impact it has on the world, I mean, the whole entire, everything is made better by engineers. And so, showing kids the impact that engineers have, but really getting those girls excited early to help fill that large gender gap that we have in engineering. that was a really cool thing to be a part of. And, now being international and reaching girls all over the world, of course, the boys love it too, but it's just been really cool seeing 4-year-old girls in the engineering programs. And if you can get in that early,
And how do you educate? Like, one of the questions that popped into my mind when you were talking about the elementary program with the PTA, how many kids knew what the words civil engineering meant?
Exactly. I wouldn't have known.
No, most, STEM has now, there's a lot more awareness now, but back in 2009 when I started, if you had asked a kindergartner, what is an engineer? They might say someone who drives a train, so that's the very first thing we talk about in all of our programs. What is an engineer? What is technology? What do engineers do? And so we go through, that process and then narrow it down. Okay, now that you know what an engineer is, what is a civil engineer do? What do they do? What do they design? And guess what, kids, you're going to get to be a civil engineer today. And then we give them a challenge. And the magic of engineering for kids is we don't tell the kids, okay, you're going to build a bridge and this is how you're going to build it and follow these directions. We don't do that. We tell them, you're going to design a bridge that's going to hold the most weight possible. And we let them use their creativity, use their problem solving skills, and we let them run with it and design on their own. And that's when the magic happens.
That's brilliant.
I love those projects because I had my kids are all, 14 to 22. And so when they're probably similar ages to yours, and it was only the gifted kids. And I had my kids in the gifted classes, and I remember going to those competitions at the gifted center where they would build a dome, and whoever's dome, they would weigh it and they'd have a competition, or they went to the best robotics. And you got, you went through it year after year, and eventually you got to be the driver of the robot, so those things, they got so much out of that. But if they had not been in those programs, and they were all boys, the girls are married-ins, and they did not do the engineering thing either. They were in gifted programs, but they didn't have that same experience. So how do you spread the word? I think calling it STEM and the push that the science community has made for knowing what that means has been beneficial. But how do you get this in their everyday vernacular?
Well, so you got to make it fun.
Right.
That's the point. It's all about the student experience in our programs, and making sure that when they come, not only are they having a good time, they're also learning. We kind of say that we sneak in the learning a bit. But if we start using the terminology in the classes over and over again, and if we encourage them to use the terminology, then it starts to become, part of the everyday, conversation when they're doing these builds. And it's really cool to see, a 5-year-old or a 6-year-old explain to you what, a civil engineer is.
Yeah. What do you see as the biggest challenge that these young engineers are going to have to deal with in the future? What problems will they be solving that you're prepping them for through this education and having them see a future that they can, with their problem solving skills and their building skills, solve? What are some of the problems these future engineers are going to be solving?
So that is, I love that question. That is a great question. There's so many problems that need to be solved, and there's such a wide variety within engineering. And so it could be, solving energy issues. That is something that is not going to go away. We have a lot of problems to solve in terms of energy. But then you think about things, and I'm going back to getting girls excited about engineering, the things that kind of pull on your heartstrings a bit, thinking about, biomedical engineers and thinking about, the design of prosthetics, or, things that will improve the daily lives of people. Those are some of the things that get people really excited about.
That would definitely excite me, this whole, especially in the medical field, what can be done now with robotics and even surgeries that are done virtually. I mean, you're in one state and you're doing surgery here, and some brilliant engineer figured that out and is saving lives doing that. And society always has challenges. It's amazing how technology is solving many of those challenges. Of course, it's also creating some challenges and where we're not quite social as what we may have been in the past. But I know that could be solved also. So talk to us a little bit more about how girls are taking to this. Are they telling their friends about this, or are they hoarding it for themselves? What are they doing? It's like, I don't want you in the club because this is all about me. I mean, how are they handling it?
I think that girls have gotten a lot better with being comfortable working with technology and being involved in STEM programs and competing with the boys. You know, I think that it's becoming, I think, a lot easier for girls to be involved. You know, the more we include girls, the more they get comfortable. And watch out, boys, because you know, we've got you know, some very gifted engineers that are females, and you know, females think differently than boys, and so we solve problems differently. And so there's a room for both, but getting them excited young, I think when they're, you know, a 4-year-old coming into a program, they're just, you know, there to have fun. They don't really think yet that this is supposed to be for boys. You know, that notion isn't there yet, you know? And so getting them used to that at age 4, you know, only makes them more confident as they move through. And especially that confidence in math. I see a lot of girls lose their confidence. They say it's around 4th, 5th grade where girls start to lose their confidence in math. But if they're having positive experiences where they're applying math, you know, through programs like Engineering for Kids, I think it is only going to, you know, improve their confidence as they get older.
Well, you're so right, because little girls don't question it. You put it in front of them and they're just accepting. They're like, oh, this is what I'm supposed to do. Great. But I do think that, you know, from a marketing kind of perspective, it is being celebrated more now. And like I do some marketing for the Hiller Company sometimes, which is a fire protection thing, and it's male dominated by far. But we try to talk and encourage women in the field to be celebrated. And they pull things out with their social media posts, and they talk about the women miners, you know, out in Arizona who are engineers of that particular field. And I think hopefully that will continue to grow, and businesses like theirs will continue to encourage and recruit and promote women in leadership positions to get more women in.
Yeah. Absolutely. You know, it's interesting. One of the things that we've noted, Elizabeth and I, is that women seem to be more collaborative. And I guess I'm curious, Dori, if this is a attribute that's useful in solving problems, engineering problems, where this collaborative versus I have all the answers, or this is my project, that women do tend to be better at the sharing of ideas and collaborating. Is that true even as when kids are smaller, and is there something that you do to encourage that? I'm just wondering if you could address that.
Yeah, so you're absolutely right on. And in the real world, engineers work together in teams. And it's often in those teams where you have engineers who have different expertise. And so through the Engineering for Kids programs, we have the kids work together in teams, and we give them, you know, different jobs, if you will, within the team, and rotate them through so they can see, you know, the importance of different roles within the engineering team. And, you know, they come to our programs and we tell them, okay, you are an engineer today, and, you know, this is your problem to solve. And we let them run with it. And, you know, all of our programs incorporate that you know, team cooperation, and the girls are very good at it.
I want to know how many of them boss the boys around.
Yes, yes.
Girls make very good leaders.
Absolutely. Well, and to your point about most of these problems that engineers are solving, a single brain, a single expertise, a single thought isn't going to cut it. It really does require collaboration, co-creation, some way of tapping into those individual strengths.
Mhm.
And women are kind of wired to do that. So I'm looking forward in the next 10, 15, 20 years to see engineering for kids and girls and engineering in general, how this whole world is going to change based on this natural tendency. Now we're just teaching them math, and we're teaching them engineering, and we're teaching them problem solving, but they already had the skills of team and collaboration and those kinds of things. So I'm looking at a world that's going to be just beautiful.
I love it. I'm looking forward to it too.
So one last question before we wrap things up, what through this path, because it was a different path than you anticipated, and you learned a lot of new things along the way, what is the best piece of advice you got along that path as you were building your success?
That is a great question. I would say just follow your instincts. I think that in business, I'm actually almost happy that I don't have a formal business background, because I think that if I had formal business training, I probably wouldn't have kind of just jumped into business. I probably would have followed the steps you're supposed to follow. And so I would say, follow the path you were led to lead, and not get hung up on what you're supposed to do.
Yeah,
that's great advice. I love that. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and I think some of the most successful people I have seen, having 27 years now working with franchisors, franchisees, entrepreneurs, I think what you're suggesting is so true. When you have that business plan and every detail, filled out, the I's dotted, the T's crossed, and the projections and all of that stuff, this more kind of build the airplane as you're flying kind of idea, as long as you're coming from some level of purpose, and sanity, seems to be working for many entrepreneurs, and to go using that kind of passion, that kind of purpose, that kind of faith and trust that this is the way you're being led, and these are your gifts, and you're simply applying them, and it just happens to be turning into a business, right?
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
Very, very exciting. Oh my goodness, I want to be an engineer. Is it too late?
Probably not, Rebecca. I think you could switch gears.
Do we get to wear cute little aprons or anything like that? No.
I'll sign you up for a class.
Or those pocket protector thingies. I get to wear.
That's what you.
I want to look the part, right?
That's awesome. Well, Dori, tell us, if someone is interested in engineering for kids, and either as a franchisor or as a consumer, what is the best way to go about reaching out to get more information?
Go to our website, engineeringforkids.com, and there's information there on both signing up for a program as well as finding out information on franchising.
Excellent. All right, guys, you heard it right here. Where passion and purpose collide. This is a girl that's living her passion, and she's also on purpose, and allowing a whole lot of other little boys and little girls who soon will be men and women who are changing the planet. So thanks for being with us, Dori. We really appreciate it.
Thank you so much for having me.
What do you think is the #1 challenge for franchisors? You got it, getting the right fit franchisee. And as you know, poor fit franchisees are often poor performers. Poor fit franchisees cost more to train and support. Poor fit franchisees are rarely satisfied or compliant, which can lead to validation issues. Not a good place to be. But now there is a solution. Zoracle Profile's scientific spot-on match program. Working with top broker groups in franchising, Zoracle has created a platform that scientifically matches the broker's candidate to the right fit franchise brand. Spot On Match predicts the compatibility, performance, and viability of a prospective franchisee. Spot On Match gives the franchise development team a data-driven and scientific approach to selling franchises. This is how it works. Zoracle works with each franchisor to establish their top performer blueprint. This research assesses current franchisees to determine the key psychographic indicators that separate high performers from mid to low performing franchisees. The final result of the research is the brand's Eclipse report, which compares prospective franchisees to a franchise system's high performers. Finally, brokers are running a spot-on profile on each of their franchise prospects. These profiles are then scientifically bumped up against the franchisor's high performer algorithms, and the match process begins. Dashboards are built for the franchisor and the broker to make sure the process is smooth and trackable. Right Fit matches instantly. Find out how you can be a spot-on match member. Save time. Stop guessing. Start matching. Call Zoracle Profiles.
Welcome to Women in the Know, where we discuss everything from politics and policy to relationships and marketing. We take the things we have learned through our life experience, our businesses, and our interviews to share them with you and hope that we all can glean a little something extra from it. So, Rebecca, today we wanted to talk about listening to your intuition and following that inner voice. We talked about it a little bit with our interview with Dori Roberts, Stewart. Yeah. And I think it's an interesting thing because I know for me, I've heard that inner voice sometimes, and when I've not listened to it, things have not gone like I thought they would or gone well. So I think it's something that a lot of people talk about, but she really put it into practice and just had that leap of faith that the way her life was leading her, the path she was being led down, not necessarily intentionally,
Right.
Was the right path, and she just followed her gut. So, I mean, have you had that experience in your life?
I have quite frequently, actually, being in touch with the intuition and trusting it and taking some major leaps and risks because I did trust it. One of the things that I was curious about is, are we more in touch with our intuition when we don't have plans or expectations? Because Dori talked about truly not having any expectations from her parents. There were no standards for her, other than to be average and to get a job. And I wonder if she was in touch more with her intuition because she wasn't measuring it to a particular expectation that I should be this or I should have this accomplished. That wasn't set for her, nor did she set it for herself. I guess that's my question. I wonder if that allowed that still small voice, that intuition to come up and said, here's your gifts, here's your passions, here's your purpose. How about you go this direction? And every time she was prompted, she responded. And then her clients and the students and her parents gave her feedback, and she would be prompted again and she would go on. But I guess that's my question. I wonder if there's a connection between not having this is where I'm going, which then allows intuition to say, I think we should go this way.
Mm-hmm. It's a really interesting question. And I don't know that I know the answer to that. I think and I think it can be very individual. Like, I have a child who's 22 and he's in college and he's majoring in music business, and he's a senior. Like, he should be finishing, but he feels like it's not the right path. He's like, what do I do with that? What do I do with the music business? I feel like I'm on the wrong path. And he's listening to that voice. I'm pretty sure that's what he's doing. And 5 years ago, I would have said, you need to hurry up and finish. I mean, why are you taking so long? We got 5 kids to get through school. You can't be not making progress. But in the last few years, and I think the pandemic has helped, but I also think just experience has helped. College is not a bad place to be if you're a college student. I mean, if you're that age right now, it's safer than being out in the real world trying to find a job in a pandemic. But also, I think, Donald and I kind of stopped and listened to him and said, if you feel like you're not on the right path, you need to figure out what your path should be. And there's no flaw in changing it now. And if you need to stop, like take a semester off or take a year off and figure it out and then re-enter on a different path, that's fine. This is an investment in the next 40 years of your life. So, and he's like, well, if I don't take a class, I'm scared I won't go back. And I said, well, I get that too, because that does happen to people.
Right.
So we were like, take a class, keep your foot in the door. So he ended up signing up for 2, an academic class and a music jazz band, because he loves that. And he's slowing down and kind of taking this time to research and talk to his advisors and see what it would take to make a shift. Like, is it more important to just get out and get on with it? Or is it more important to reevaluate his whole major? I don't know the answer for him, but I think allowing him to listen to that voice and say, I am not going in a direction I want to be. I don't think this is my path, is important. And I think wouldn't have done that several years ago. I'd have been frustrated.
Well, especially since you're a control freak.
Right. I mean, I do have that problem.
Right, where it has to sort of measure. And I think that's the point I was trying to make, is I wonder how often we don't hear the intuition. I mean, that's different than a feeling that says, I don't want to go to school, right?
Right.
The intuition that's saying, maybe my passion is somewhere else, or I'm being led in another direction. So that to me is different than I hate doing homework, right? That's a different.
Yeah. And I think that's where I would have gone with him in his younger years, but he's genuinely being thoughtful, and he's got a mature way of thinking, and I trust him when he tells me things. So I think that knowing that that's where he is listening to that voice makes it easy for me to say, you're allowed to take a minute and figure it out.
Well, and Dori brought up the thing about she acted on her intuition, but she knew it was the right direction based on the results, right? Based on the feedback she got, which then brought up more intuition. She acted on that and she got great results. So there appears to be kind of a feedback loop with this intuition. It's one thing just to willy-nilly decide to go do something, but if you're not getting some kind of feedback, whatever that is, money, success, fulfillment, whatever that feedback is, for her, it was verbal feedback and transformation in the kids that she was teaching that let her know she was on the right track and she could continue to stay on that track. That track changed a couple of times as it continued to expand. But that first stepping out was purely an intuition, purely a passion, purely purpose-driven, and she trusted it.
Which is huge, I think, trusting it.
I want to be a Dori when I grow up.
Yeah, I think that's pretty brave.
It is pretty brave. It is pretty brave. Well, okay, now that we have solved the intuition question, or at least got the question started, I'm curious what other people think. If they listen to their intuition, when do they know it's intuition versus a feeling that, it's just getting in the way, or a thought that's getting in the way? And how do you know when you're going the right direction? I'd be curious to hear from others.
Well, and I also want to know if you have had the intuition and not followed it, how has that worked out for you?
Yeah. Yeah, I've had a few.
Regret when you don't listen to it.
Who, right? Yeah. All right. Thanks for joining us. We'll see you next week on Women in the Know.
All right. The Franchise Woman is a bi-monthly digital magazine that empowers women as they navigate the franchising industry by providing relevant news, tools, advice, and inspiration. We are a resource for women who are seeking to own their own businesses, improve their existing businesses, find creative solutions, and take advantage of franchise opportunities. We feature women in the business who best exemplify our ideals and have something to teach our readers. In addition to our exclusive articles relating to the female entrepreneur, we also feature brands that are geared for women. Women have become the fastest growing sector in business ownership and have become a powerful, influenceable force fueling the economy. The Franchise Woman will give you the news that is relevant to you to help you navigate the path of successful franchise ownership. By women, for women, and about women. We are the Franchise Woman. Join us today at www.thefranchisewoman.com.
Welcome to Ask Beck and Liz, where no topic is off limits. We want to answer your questions about business, life, and everything in between. Send your questions to ask@beckandliz.com. That's ask@beckandliz.com. Our question today, Elizabeth, is around filling your cup. How do you fill your cup when you feel like you're on empty? You've gone through a divorce, you've gone through a pandemic, things are, falling apart around you. How do you recharge and fill your cup?
I think that's a critical question to survival. And, when we talk to Dori, I think a lot of people who have been through a divorce can relate to being empty, having your cup emptied. And she was able to focus her energy and fill her cup up by being creative and creating this business and creating a space for her kids and herself to redefine who they were together, and pour herself into something that filled her cup. And then by doing that and going through all this process over the years, she was able to fill others' cups. She took her little candle and lit the next one and lit the next one through the franchise system, which is what I love about franchising, is that it carries forward. You're paying it forward, really. But I think I've been through a divorce. I poured myself into, during that time, I had a sick child. I had a lot of things going on at one time, and I played tennis like nobody's business. I filled my cup by being physically active, by forming a community of women in tennis. That became some of my closest friends that I haven't played in a long time, but I'm still friends, very close. My very closest friend in Pensacola is from the tennis team. First time I ever met her, she smacked me in the back of the head with her ball. She was serving behind me and she had a serve and she just hit me in the back of the head. She didn't know me at all. So she had no idea what I was going to do. And she was very relieved that I turned around and fell over laughing.
Oh my God.
That is a way to introduce yourself. But I think that was one way I filled my cup. What methods have you used to fill your cup?
Well, and I think the point I want to highlight with what you said is we have to fill our own cup before we can take our candle or our energy and then light other people's cup. And for each of us, it is different. For Dori Roberts Stewart, it was to find some purpose in teaching young kids engineering, which then allowed her to also get her kids involved. So she filled her cup by contributing, right? By helping others. And then in turn, she got emotionally rewarded for that. And she felt more fulfillment, more purpose, and she got wonderful feedback from others. So it's fill our cup first, and then we can light the candle for someone else, so to speak, And I think each of us has a different way to do it. You did it through physical exercise and building community. She did it through creativity and creating a business. But I think each of us has to find what that is, what fills our cup. I can tell you, as women, almost always filling our cup involves community. It includes being in relationship with one another, picking up a phone and talking to someone, going someplace where you can, share stories and talk about the future and about that idiot and whatever it is that you want to talk about. Right. But almost always the filling of the cup is a relational thing. I don't think we evolve and develop personally outside of relationship. We're not islands.
Mhm.
I think that's important. So and I think that's why the coterie is growing so quickly and we're getting such wonderful feedback, is we're creating a platform that allows women to be in community. They're not going to get a lead and to grow their business. They're going to fill their cup.
Well, exactly. I think that's exactly, I realized that distinction some today. I mean, that's always been the goal. But you go to networking groups and it's work. You're trying to bring leads to other people. You're getting leads. Then you have to do something with those leads, and it's creating more effort and more work. And sometimes that can be draining and exhausting. I mean, it's always good to get leads.
Exhausting.
But we want to be a place where you come in and have real conversation and talk about things like the gifts in your struggle. Ask questions and talk about, we have a woman who talks about, she gave us a quote about bringing value to every experience she has, but also gaining value from those she interacts with. And it's been kind of a transformative way of thinking for a lot of us who were in that conversation, because you have to believe that and accept it. And that fills your cup. Those sorts of conversations can give you a different perspective of how you walk through your day the next day or the next week or the next year. We're still talking about that quote. And this was several weeks ago at happy hour. So I think these things are incredibly valuable in terms of finding the intimacy in the community without having to perform something.
Right.
Having an ability to have a real discussion.
And when you do perform, it's because your cup overfloweth, right? For lack of a better way of saying
exactly.
that. You're full, and now you want to contribute. Now you want to give. Now you want to bring your gifts to whatever situation that you are in. So it becomes a natural thing. But if you're not first taking care of yourself, right, and filling your own cup one way or another, however that is done, it's hard, to give and to light the candle for someone else or pass on your own gifts when you yourself are kind of just sort of surviving in many ways, intellectually, socially, and other ways. The pandemic has really highlighted this because folks are much more isolated than ever before. And so this has become increasingly more of a need for us to understand we need each other. We need to be in relationship. And so that's what we want to do here at the Coterie, right?
Yes, we would like to fill your cup.
Yes, fill your cup and then share your cup with others, right?
Exactly. Then pour it to somebody else's.
Pour it into someone else's. Exactly. I love that.
Well, I think we're on the right track. So if you have not checked out the Coterie for Women and you are a woman in need of community and support and no expectations of performance, but also willing to give back when you're ready, we are the place for you.
Absolutely. Thank you, everyone, for joining us today, where passion and purpose collide, profits are made, and relationships are forged. This is Beck and Liz signing off and wishing you another purpose-filled and profitable week.